So we talked about PlayStation quite a bit on this podcast as far as services and stuff, but you wanted to hit us with what would we call it, Jordan? The
Oh, well, we were going to call it something, but then I think I thought of a better name. I think it's going to be PlayStation Debriefing, March 2017.
There you go. Okay, hit us with your
There you go.
debriefing.
So come on into the war room and have a seat. I'll bring up our holographic display here in the middle of the table, and we're going to go on a debriefing here. Basically, yeah, I just wanted to talk about PlayStation, where we're at. This will be actually a recurring topic, the PlayStation debriefing. March 2017. And so I'll have it, like every few months or whatever, maybe later on this fall. We'll see what's up. And just talk about where we're at with PlayStation, and see where we're going. So, of course, we can start out with Horizon Zero Dawn. You mentioned that it sold 2.6 million copies. That's obviously a great start. It's great for Guerrilla and great for PlayStation in general. But I definitely think it's also really good for a couple of other things in the industry. I think that, Lara Croft was always a big example of video game heroine, right? Like a main character being female in a video game and being a badass. But I think Aloy is going to be an even stronger example of that, just because I think that Lara Croft will always be this kind of like, she doesn't look like it in the game, but she's kind of like an old crotchety video game character, like she's like your old uncle's video game character, she's like an older staple, like Mario and them.
Also, when she first came out, she was very over sexualized, which
Right.
Aloy doesn't have that. Like, she's a very strong woman from
Right.
the start, and the recent Tomb Raider games
Exactly.
have kind of corrected that. But you always have in the back of your mind, oh, remember the skimpily clad Tomb Raider,
Sure.
Lara Croft.
Yeah. So Aloy comes out from the start a lot stronger, and she's also just very memorable, very likable. They try in the latest Tomb Raider games to get away from what you're talking about with the scantily clad, and so they make her look very plain with just a tank top and some pants. Aloy really sticks out with her red hair and her weird looking clothes because of the world that she comes from, and so yeah, that's a big part of it. And then also, it shows that, like you said earlier, these studios that may have been known for doing a certain thing over and over again can always break out of that mold, and studios that aren't necessarily looked at as powerhouses within the first parties can totally move around. And to be honest, I think that with this game, Guerrilla has absolutely solidified itself at the top of the Sony first-party stable, up there with Sucker Punch and Naughty Dog, and putting them up there with great first PlayStation studios, maybe that aren't first-party, but like Insomniac and guys like that. So they're definitely taking a step up, and so I think that this will inspire other studios to do the same thing. Like, you can kind of act a little bit big for your britches. You can kind of reach a little bit further than you would expect. And then another point, of course, is new IPs can work as long as you're doing something that's interesting, something that's fresh, and something that is cool in 2017 or in 2018 when it comes out, or whenever. It just needs to be something that people are going to want to put their time and their mind share into, because a big thing about new franchises is hooking you in on the lore, right? When a new franchise starts up, it's got to hook you in on the lore, or it's not going to have its fan base that it needs to sustain itself for many, many years. So I think Horizon proves a lot of things that we thought were not true just a couple years ago in the industry, that you couldn't have a big AAA game with a female protagonist, or you couldn't do it very often. These smaller studios and first parties couldn't reach for the stars and make these huge AAA games. They were relegated to their area, their lane, so it were. And then that new IPs can't be proliferated and really make a studio or a publisher a lot of money. So there's that. And then further into the debriefing, I think it's just looking ahead. I think we have, there are already several great PlayStation exclusives, maybe not first-party games, but exclusives, like Neo. And then you did have the first-party game with Gravity Rush 2 earlier this year. But even later on this year, I think we're going to have even more of those. You've got Persona 5 coming up next month as an exclusive. There is going to be another first-party game. It's tough to tell whether it'll be God of War, Detroit, or Days Gone. I'm thinking it's not going to be God of War, but I think we could definitely see Days Gone or Detroit this year. So yeah, what do you think, Jared, from an outsider's perspective, looking at PlayStation right now?
So I think the biggest thing coming from an Xbox perspective is there's been a lot of murmurings of the sky is falling for Xbox, which I think is completely overblown and crazy.
I don't think there's murmurings. I think people are just acting like the sky is falling.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, to be completely honest with you. But in the same sense, I think PlayStation has done a phenomenal job of bringing out a lot of exclusives. The thing with all of those exclusives, though, outside of Horizon Zero Dawn, most of them are niche. Like, Horizon Zero Dawn definitely hits a more general core audience, right? Persona 5 is probably going to be a phenomenal game. That's a very niche audience. Nier Automata, niche audience. Gravity Rush 2, niche audience. Neo, niche audience. But I really think that's how you hit exclusivity right. You shouldn't have more than one first party exclusive or just even first, second, or third party that goes to the general audience in more than a span of 3 months, because then people feel overwhelmed. We're seeing non-exclusive games that are coming out. Like, this first 3 months of this year is insane so far, and I think PlayStation,
especially if you're a PlayStation gamer.
Exactly. And I think that they've set it up perfectly of like, okay, do you like Souls, you like those type of difficult games, here's Neo for you. You like superhero-ish kind of Japanesey games, here's Gravity Rush. Oh, you're just a core gamer, but you also love open worlds and you're hardcore as well. Here's Horizon.
Superhero-y Japanesey games.
Yeah. There's plenty of niches for people, and I think that...
Yeah, exactly. And they're hitting all those, which obviously we've talked about Xbox is just straight up not doing. They don't have enough diversity in their first party to hit every type of customer on their platform.
And it's not just first party, it's second and third. Like, I think that's a big point for Phil Spencer moving forward, and I think that's going to be a huge part of their conference. People are thinking that they're going to show off Scorpio at E3 as the initial thing, and that might be the case, but I don't think so. I think they're going to have an event before, because they realize that, and they've realized since Phil Spencer's taken over, that's all about the games, and it's, strengthening those partnerships. And yeah, Scalebound sucks, but really, would you rather have an exclusive that could have come out to lukewarm reception and not been very good and still been shitted on as an Xbox gamer, or have them cut those ties now and put those resources to something that might take a little bit more time to develop, but you'll ultimately be happy to call yourself an Xbox gamer with that exclusive, And I think go ahead.
Though I would just want to play devil's advocate there, because as I am an Xbox gamer myself, and I would say this. I think the right balance is for them to cancel those games earlier. Fable Legends and Scalebound were way too late in development. Really about to come out, both of them, within the span of a year, and they were canceled. And I think they should have been canned way earlier on, and then those teams could have moved on to something else and had a new game up on the table sooner. So I think that's... also my biggest issue with that.
I think it's, you can't really, I understand the comparison there, but Lionhead was in a different situation than Scalebound, because Scalebound, Xbox owned the IP, but it wasn't first party, whereas Lionhead is the more telling one of like, why didn't they cancel that sooner? Because their relationship with that studio, they own Lionhead, they owned before they closed it. So it's like, it's interesting to me that they wouldn't have done that one sooner. But there's also the devil's advocate to that devil's advocate of like, well, yeah, they didn't do it sooner, but at least it didn't take him 10 years to do it, So it's like, it's this weird thing. I do agree with you that, yeah, I don't think it was handled necessarily perfectly well, but, shifting more towards PlayStation, I think I am of the boat that I don't think any of those games that you just mentioned are coming out this fall. I can be surprised. But just with the slate of everything we already know that's coming out this fall with Destiny 2 and Red Dead, barring obviously delays and such, I really don't know if they even need to. And we've talked about this too. Like, plenty of people have talked about it. That they haven't really had fall exclusives and they've done fine. And I don't know if PlayStation is even trying to get those games out earlier. As far as like a Detroit Become Human or Beyond Human, I always call it. No, that's right? Become Human.
It is Beyond.
Yeah.
Become.
Yeah, okay. I always get that mixed up. Cage is...
It's because of the...
Beyond Two Souls. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because of their last game.
Cage is very perfectionist, sometimes to a fault. And that guy, if you give him the option of 3 more months, he's going to take 3 more months,
Oh, sure.
And God of War...
Quantic Dream would never... If Quantic Dream had it their way, their games would just never come out.
Exactly. Polish. God of War, I agree with you, is 100% the one that doesn't come out this year. I think Detroit and Days Gone have the higher chance, and I'm super in the minority, and this is coming from an Xbox dude, so take it with a grain of salt. But out of all of those games that they showed off, Days Gone looked like the most generic, boring out of all of them. It's the one if I was a PlayStation gamer, I'd be the least interested in. And that's not coming from a place of somebody who has zombie fatigue. I love zombie games. I'm super excited for State of Decay 2. It's just that the way they're showcasing that game, maybe that presentation was just bad, but it doesn't hook me on any level. Spider-Man hooked me. God of War: The New Direction hooked me. Detroit, come on. Like, all of those games that they showed hit me, and Days Gone just like, wow, this is
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely the least excited game for me as far as PlayStation exclusives, which sucks because I think it's probably going to be the next one out. Maybe Detroit will sneak in there before it, but it would really be tough on Days Gone to be, because there's not very many first-party Sony open world games, and it's going to be tough on that game to run right up next to Horizon as far as the order of PlayStation
if it comes out this fall, man, to come out next to Red Dead, that's going to be tough.
Well, to come out next to those games, yeah, but just think as far as being the next PlayStation exclusive to step up after Horizon, it's like, sorry, dude, that sucks for you,
Yeah, and maybe we're wrong. Maybe the game's fantastic, but PlayStation hasn't shown us otherwise as of yet.
Absolutely not. So. And something else to say, just to play a little more devil's advocate here. I was talking about Microsoft mishandling to the extent of not canceling their games soon enough and letting them go on too long. And I think that was the case with Sony Santa Monica and their sci-fi game, which is why it's taking so motherfucking long for them to release another game after God of War Ascension, which came out in like 2013, I think. So yeah, it's probably going to be...
Yeah.
So I'm almost positive it was because it was, I'm pretty sure it was the year that PS4 was coming out, and it was like one of the last big PS3 exclusives, besides The Last of Us and Beyond Two Souls. Anyways, I think, yeah, it's, that's the same example, but over on Sony's side where, obviously they were way deep into that, Sony Santa Monica sci-fi, seemingly RPG, and had some really big writing talent on there, and then of course a lot of Sony Santa Monica's time is spent in their XDev programs, or was, with that game company and Giant Sparrow and other companies as well, whoever did Bound, and so I get that it's taken them this long, but yeah, that's another mismanagement there where I'm like, dude, it's probably going to be 2018 before God of War comes out, and it's just like, ugh, we should be playing that stupid sci-fi game of theirs, which there's barely been any information about that game come out, and it's been a while since it got canceled,
Yeah. I think just my closing thoughts on your debriefing before we air closing thoughts is, I think 3.5 months into this year, it's a great period, and you should be happy to own a PlayStation 4 from a games perspective. I think they've nailed it on all chords. So yeah, I think it's awesome. If an exclusive does come out later in the year, I think it'll be even if nothing comes out until this fall, overall it'll still be a very solid year in terms of PlayStation exclusivity and the purpose of owning a PlayStation. So yeah, I think PlayStation
Actually
nailed it.
We're forgetting something. There is going to be another PlayStation exclusive this year in Gran Turismo Sport, because that game had a date last fall, and so if they push it all the way out of this year, that would be really fucked up. Because that's like, it's one thing to say Red Dead's coming out fall 2017. Oh, we're going to delay it to spring of 2018. But to say 21st of September 2016 and then go, JK, it's 2018. That'd be pretty fucked up. So it seems like they're definitely going to hit this year with GT Sport, and I don't think that would interest Dom, and I know it doesn't interest me. I don't think it interests you, so I don't think that's going to be part of our crowd, but that's going to be a huge exclusive, way bigger than Horizon, probably way bigger than Uncharted, because Gran Turismo is always the best-selling exclusive whenever it comes out, and now it's going to be on the best-selling console for GT Sports. So that is going to be gigantic whenever the fuck they actually get it out, and it's going to have PSVR support. So yeah, that's going to be a big one.
It'll also be the prettiest game on PS4 Pro. Those games, the racing games, are always the prettiest. Always. Yeah. I think that does it for this week's show. That was a really cool. I like the debriefing. We'll definitely be doing those. I'll probably do an Xbox one in the future at some point.
Yeah, but you got to get your own name for it, dude, because it's not the PlayStation Debriefing March 2017.
I'll come up with something.